All right, I am finally live. I'm running just a few minutes behind this morning. It's hard to get rolling this early. It is 7:52 a.m. We're about 22 minutes behind what I normally would, but I know that most of you are probably going to watch this as a recorded video. And I just wanted to remind everyone that there are individuals that are watching this live, and some of the things that I do are somewhat interactive. But it's interesting that some of you still think it's live when you're watching it as a recording. So it's 7:53 a.m. Mountain Standard Time right now. So if I'm asking you questions and you're responding 2 days later, you're kind of a little bit behind. So I see people are now starting to join in, and I'll just do a quick audio check. Can everybody hear me okay? I see that I've got a couple people on here. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay with the audio. Awesome. Okay, thanks, Samita. I appreciate that. Okay, all right, well, let's get started here. The reason that I wanted to do this special EE Live Q&A was as a result of some questions that were sent or posted on the Express Entry Law Facebook page. Now, I just checked today, and we're up to 30,600 people. So right off the bat, I just want to confirm to all of you that it is physically impossible for me to be able to answer all of your questions within the Express Entry Express Entry Law Facebook page. And so because of that, please don't be upset if I'm not responding right away. I always try to get back to you where possible, especially if people are referencing me and asking me specifically. But I want to express sincere appreciation to all of you fine people out there who are helping one another, who are responding to one another's questions, because obviously as this group continues to grow, we are like one big family. And it is impossible for me, the founder of this family, to be able to give all 30,000 of you one-on-one attention. And really, for that reason is why I created the complete guide to doing it yourself, the Express Entry course that I created. And I'm just going to pop it up here. This is the sponsor of the EE Live Q&A. And for $39 US a month, you can have access to that. And within that guide, I have poured in all of my knowledge, all of the experience that I have. I have Q&As that are designed to answer many of the questions that everyone is asking on the page. And I did that because it's physically impossible for me to be able to answer all your questions. And I'll be honest, at this stage, I'm almost at the point where I'm not going to be able to respond specifically to every person's individual questions within the Express Entry Law Facebook page. At 30,600, it's just not possible. So what I'm going to do is probably start to do more EE Live Q&A live Facebook videos to answer the questions that seem to come up the most frequently. And then remember, this right here, this course, I'm going to direct you back to this every single time. And because there's probably been about 15,000 people that have joined the group since I last explained the course, I just want to take 2 or 3 minutes just to show you. So I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to flip and show you my screen, and then I'm going to jump right to this. This is the login for the complete step-by-step guide. And you can see here there's a little introductory video, but this course is broken down into individual parts that talk about everything from what Express Entry is. So some of you ask me, how do I immigrate? Well, I cover that. What the comprehensive ranking system is, how does this work, how am I ranked against other people? You can see I spent 16 minutes going over that, how it works. All the way through from preparing to even submit your profile. So these first 2 modules are all designed to teach you and prepare you before you even get to the stage where you're going to submit your profile. Then module 3 is all about how to complete it, how to make sure you're doing things properly, how to make sure that you're not wasting your time including information that you don't. And then the final module, as we go, it's not listed here, but as we go down to the final module, completing the electronic application for permanent residence, This shows you exactly what you need to do to make sure that your documents are correct, that you're not entering information improperly, or that you're not somehow accidentally misrepresenting information. But every single lesson is tailored to the specific sections within the Express Entry system. And so those of you who are saying, well, why would I want to purchase this? Well, the reality is, if you like spending hundreds of hours sifting through this Express Entry Law Facebook group or going to Canadian immigration forums, searching for answers, well, it's a one-stop shop. I explain everything to you right here, and not just explain, but I physically show and demonstrate. So I work through live profiles. I got permission from clients to be able to, I redact their information, but to go through and actually show you how to complete every section. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm going to direct you back to this the whole time because I created it for you. You guys are the ones that I created it for. All right, let's jump back now, and I'm going to go back to full screen here. Okay, so this course right here is the featured sponsor, so I'd encourage you all to check it out. And if any of you who have taken the course would love to post your thoughts and comments on it here on any of these EE Live Q&A postings, I welcome it, because why are you going to listen to me? Of course I'm going to say it's awesome. But the reality is, it's you who've been out there, who've actually subscribed, paid for it, and have seen the value. So I welcome you to provide your feedback. And if it sucks, let everybody know, because obviously I'm going to need to change things, because I think it's awesome, and it's just going to come down to whether or not the people that are actually using it feel the same way. So there's enough for the plug for the sponsor. All right, today is a special, like I said, a special Express Entry live video. And the reason I wanted to do it is because someone made a comment, and I think they were referencing David Cohen's Immigration Canada Visa site, saying how that there, or it was on the immigration forum over there, that the points are going to drop substantially down to 380, that 6,000 people are going to be drawn. And understand that there's a good chance that more people are going to be drawn in this next round of invitation, which we don't know for sure when it's going to happen, but we suspect more people will be drawn because there's been a delay. And why is there a delay? Because of the changes that just happened at the beginning of June, where points are added now if you have a Canadian sibling. And that's someone who is a blood brother or sister who has the same parent as you, or the principal applicant, or your spouse's siblings. And so that's one. Or if you speak French, you get extra points for that. And so those are some of the changes that occurred recently, and the government is just instituting and rolling out and figuring out how to implement those new changes so that everybody who is in the pool is actually getting credit for them. So because of those changes, we don't know what's going to happen in the next round of invitation. So people are desperately trying. They're thinking, okay, well, what if the points are going to drop to 380? How can I maximize my comprehensive ranking system points so that I can get up from, say, 345 to 385, for instance? Well, how can we do that? Well, some of you have spouses, and the government actually prejudices people who have spouses. So if you have a spouse and your spouse doesn't have good English, let's say they can't speak English at all, or they don't have any post-secondary education, no Canadian work experience, well, the reality is they're going to get less, like 0 points, and 40 of your points are being allocated to your spouse. So some people are now saying, okay, well, what am I going to do? Can I list my spouse as non-accompanying and then come to Canada? Well, the answer is yes, you can. Would I do that? Never, because I couldn't even imagine being away from my wife for more than a week at a time. And I know some of you make huge sacrifices for your family. But if you feel like that's something that you have to do, you can list your spouse as non-accompanying. But the problem is then you could be separated from them for a very, very, very long time. Now, I'm going to let you in on something that I personally don't agree with, but that I did clarify with the immigration officers at the National Canadian Bar Association's immigration conference that I attended last weekend. So not this past weekend, but the weekend before. And I asked them this question. I said, okay, if someone chooses not to include their spouse, and listen carefully to this, everyone. If someone chooses not to include their spouse, in other words, list them as non-accompanying, they still have to obtain police clearances, they still have to obtain an immigration medical, but they're not assessed against the comprehensive ranking system points. So you're basically assessed as an individual, so you would get the full benefit of those 40 points being calculated towards you only. And so it may not mean that you get all 40 points, but the reality is you're going to be able to reclaim most of them as an individual or a single applicant when it comes to the ranking. So by not including your spouse, you could potentially increase your points by 30 or up to 40 more. And so some people are trying to decide, do I leave my spouse as non-accompanying? So if you do that, and you go through the process, you land as a permanent resident, yes, you can sponsor them later. And you can sponsor them as under the family class as a spouse. And right now that's taking about a year to do that after you've become a permanent resident yourself. But some people have asked me, and this is a question I felt that I owed it to all of you to get a response to. Some people say, okay, well, what if I get my ITA because I list my spouse as non-accompanying, then I submit my electronic application for permanent residence to the government, and when I'm nearing the end of my processing of my application, so let's say you submit your electronic application for permanent residence, and then when I'm just about done, I say, oh, my spouse has changed her mind. Now she wants to come. I want to add her. Will this work? Or will they retract everything and say, well, no, you should have included her at the beginning. You can't add her. Well, the answer is it can work. And I would never, ever counsel anyone to do this, but people have asked me, and there's so much misinformation out there. As it stands right now, the government knows that that is a loophole, and I don't believe in loopholes, and I think it's disingenuous for people to do this. But if you decide to not include your spouse in the beginning so that you can get your comprehensive ranking system points, and then file your EAPR, while it's in process, then notify the government that you want to add your spouse, it is possible to do that. And the government knows that it's there, and they've chosen specifically not to do anything about it or close that loophole. So theoretically, you could not include your spouse, and then at the very end, notify them that you wanted to include them. It's almost like having a baby. When your spouse is expecting, and that new child is not added to the application until after they're born, when you do that with a spouse, it will delay the processing. There's no doubt about it. But there's nothing legally preventing you from doing so. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Now, I'll reiterate again that this is not something that I would ever recommend for anyone. I don't think it's ethical, if that's a word, if it can apply to this, but I know consultants out there and other immigration lawyers are advising people to do that. And I just want you to know that it is legal, but not something that I would feel comfortable doing as your representative. So there you have it. So those of you who are trying to think, okay, how can I increase my points from, say, 350 to 385 with the potential in this next draw, if it drops that low, I can get drawn. Well, in all honesty, I guess that's something that you can do. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, I also wanted to explain something else. Many people are asking me questions about work experience or changes or errors that they've made within their application. This is a little teaser for our next Q&A. I'm not going to cover it this time, but there is a time where many people will have filed their profile, they'll get their ITA, and then they'll realize that there was a mistake made. And that mistake can be just about anything. But the question that I get is, do I need to withdraw or to decline my invitation to apply, or can I fix it, correct it at the EAPR stage, and then submit my application with the corrected information? Well, there is an answer to that, and I'm not going to answer it in this EE Live Q&A, but I will cover it in the next one. And this is one of the questions that I was sifting through for this particular EE Live. All right, so that's something that I wanted you to also know, that I'm going to answer when the circumstances, when you need to actually cancel or decline your ITA, and when you can fix it and move on. I'll share that with you in the next EE Live Q&A. All right, I also promised another one of the members of our group that I would explain this whole crazy world of job offers. Now, many people are reporting these fake job offers. And I was just going through one feed late last night at about 11 o'clock at night, Mountain Standard Time. And people were actually posting the job offer letters and the labor market impact assessment. They were actually posting it to see if it was a fraudulent one or not. And almost every case, they were fraudulent. A fake company designed to steal your money. And it makes me so angry that people are so willing to take advantage of their own countrymen, that people in your country are trying to say that they have job offers that will get you, and remember, it's only 50 points now unless it's a senior executive level position. In those cases, it can be worth 200. But a regular job offer is not a golden ticket anymore. It is not a guarantee. Now human capital factors are more important. But if you do get a job offer, it can equate to 50 more comprehensive ranking system points, which can make the difference for many of you. But understand that any Canadian company that is hiring you or giving you a job offer, I can't think of one, not one, where someone from the company in Canada, a representative, would not want to actually interview you, whether that was through Facebook or some other means. But you have to understand that people are not just going to give you an offer or support your permanent residence if they've never spoken with you. So anytime someone is saying just submit your resume and then they kick back a job offer letter for you and say, congratulations, we are going to support your express entry to Canada, do not approach that as being genuine. I would always approach it from the standpoint that it's probably fraud, because no one is going to hire you unless you have actually spoken with them, that you've had an interview, that they've assessed you, and usually it's through Skype or some other means if you're not in Canada, obviously. But don't be duped. This happens so much, and it's heartbreaking to see you throw money away, especially when there's recruiting agencies or otherwise that are charging you thousands of dollars to connect with a Canadian company. So just to demystify this area a little bit, I'm going to flip back to my browser and I'm going to show you what a company has to do in order to support your permanent resident application. So I'm going to shift to my screen and I'm going to, let's see if I can find it, I'm going to pull up this website right here. So the Government of Canada, Employment and Social Development Canada. And if you're Googling this, you can also just type in TFWP. So ESDC TFWP. Actually, I'll show you. So if you just type in, and it's probably a little bit small, but if you type in ESDC space Temporary Foreign Worker Program and you hit search, more often than not, well, you might have to type in Canada depending upon the region that you're in. And then that will take you to hiring foreign workers. And then once you're here, this is where Canadian companies have to go to get the information that they need to submit an application for a labor market impact assessment. And you'll remember that one of the ways in which you can get job offer points is actually working in Canada on an LMIA or working in Canada on an LMIA exempt work permit that specifically names an employer, like an intercompany transfer, or having a permanent, what I call LMIA, to support your job offer when it's just to support permanent residence. So if you scroll down here, and I'm going to try and blow this up so everybody can see it a little bit easier. When you scroll down and you get to this spot right here, excuse me. I'm just going to grab a quick drink of water. This part right here, hire a skilled foreign worker. When you click on that section, and this actually is a little bit harder to see when I've got it this big. Let's blow this right up full screen. So this right here is where where every Canadian employer who wants to hire a foreign national has to go, or at least to support their permanent residence so that they can work for them when they come. You can see this is it. All the information that you're looking for is all here. But what I want to focus on is recruitment and advertisements. So when you click on recruitment and advertisements, the first thing it does is it tells the company are you hiring someone in a low wage or a high wage position? And this can get a little complicated because permanent resident applications in Canada are based on high skill, which is National Occupational Classification System 0 or A or B level positions. But for the purposes of labor market impact assessments in Canada, the Conservative government back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015, I can't remember, made changes so that now there's different rules depending on the wage level. So if it is above the provincial or territorial median hourly wage, it's the stream for high wage positions, then it will give you instructions on what you need to do in order to qualify. And so these are the program requirements you can see here. It talks about, I'm actually going to shrink this down a bit. Actually, I'll enlarge it. Okay. So the sections that I want to go to are, excuse me, are the recruitment. And so you can see here what a company has to go through. So they actually have to post advertisements to Canadians and permanent residents in at least they have to actually use at least 3 different recruitment activities. One of them is, surprise, surprise, the Government of Canada's Job Bank. And you'll remember this is one of the changes that were recently made by the government to Express Entry at the beginning of this month, on June the 6th, I think. They said that no longer did candidates within the Express Entry pool have to register on the Job Bank. And why? Because no employers were connecting with candidates that way. It was a complete waste of time. But in order to locate Canadian citizens or permanent residents who could potentially want to take the position that the company wants to give to you, they have to actually post these advertisements on the Government of Canada's, and I'm going to see if I can blow this up even more so everybody can see. There, that's nice and big. So they need to, for at least 3 different recruitment activities, they need to advertise on the Government of Canada's Job Bank or one of the provincial or territorial counterparts. False alarm sneeze. And at least 2 additional methods of recruitment that are consistent with the occupation. So if you're looking to hire a CEO of a company, you're probably not going to advertise on one of the online job boards, the free ones like Kijiji or Craigslist, which are 2 very popular places for people to post everything from advertisements to things that they're selling out of their home. And so these locations are probably not consistent with the occupation. But if you were hiring someone as a cook, maybe for your restaurant, well, then maybe you would advertise on one of these sites like Kijiji. But anyways, these ads have to be very specific. And you can see here, any company who doesn't include all of this information listed here, they may, these are some of the methods, I should say, for advertising. These are all different examples that they give. But if we look down here to the actual information that has to be included in the advertisement, it's very specific. And if companies don't get it right, then it's not going to be approved. So it has to include the company operating name, their business address, the title of the position that they want to offer, job duties, whether it's a project-based, so just a contract-based job, or a permanent position that's full-time, that's going to be ongoing for an indeterminate amount of time, the language of work, and then this is the most important right here. I'm going to highlight this, the wage, okay? So the Canadian companies cannot just offer a low wage, lower than what Canadians would take, because they know a foreign national will work for a lower amount. This wage has to be at the prevailing wage rate for that position. So must meet prevailing wage. And that's often a couple dollars more than a person is regularly paid in Canada. And so they have to list the benefits package offered, location of work, contact information, and skill requirements. So the education and work experience at a minimum. So, excuse me. So you can see all of these things the company has to satisfy first before they can ever be granted a labor market impact assessment to hire you or to support your permanent residence. And so the most important thing to realize is that if you've had no contact with this company, the likelihood of it being genuine is remote. And the company themselves cannot charge you 1 penny. It is against the law for them to charge you a fee to go through the labor market impact assessment process. And when it comes to companies who are going through this process, there's a $1,000 processing fee that's usually tied to someone who they're going to support with a work permit. But when they're doing this for the purposes of supporting your express entry, there is no fee that the actual employer is charged for this process. But you can see, I just wanted to give you a little taste of this. And I guess I could have redacted a labor market impact assessment and scanned it in and showed you what a real one looks like. You know what? That probably would be a good idea. Hey, Billy, could you just print off an LMIA and kill the company information on it just so I can show them what it looks like? Like anything that's our client information on it. And just like black it out and then scan it in. The actual approval, an LMIA confirmation. Yeah. And then, okay, we'll see how long this lasts. But I've just asked my my boss over here, Billy, to print off an actual labor market impact assessment so that we can show you guys exactly what it looks like. But there's no mistaking. And if I could go on, I wonder if I could actually find some of the examples. Thanks for being patient with me, everyone, as I kind of flounder through this. I'm going to go back to our express entry law and see if I can find that post that talked about. I'm going to shift this over here so I can see. I'm going to see if I can find that post that someone gave about that was asking about labor market impact assessments. And let's see if I can find it. Maybe it was within here. Let's see. Nope. Because people were posting it. Let's see. Do any of you within the group, do you, if you can remember the feed, I'm just trying to, like I said, I'm just trying to actually find it. Because I know some people had posted it. It was one that had a bunch of plug. Recently, let's see here, 3 comments, 2, 4. Yeah, I can't remember where it is. Let's see. Well, I apologize. You guys, I was going to show you the feed, and I guess I could have been a little bit more organized than I am right now. You know what? There's 39 comments here. I wonder if it is here. Let's see. Someone had posted a picture. Excuse me. I guess that's it. When you scan it in, Billy, can you just email it to markholsey@gmail.com? Oh, well, yeah, once it's done or whatever. All right, well, let's see here. As you can see, I try to answer everyone's questions here within these feeds, but yeah, I know that we had a good discussion, a healthy discussion about it, but I just can't remember. Let's see. Okay, Harleen. Okay, if you can post it, Harleen, then go ahead. Oh, here we go. Samita is also. Let me blow this up and see if I can access it. It's always a little bit interesting when you're trying to watch your own Facebook Live. It doesn't always show up, and so let me let me see if I can find this. Fakin group. Okay, let's see. You guys are awesome. Thank you for helping me to try to find this. Oh, let's see here. Fake. Good point. Let's search fake here. I know it's here. Oh, yes. Oh, Giju, you rule. That's the one. Okay. So I think everybody, I'm going to blow this up again. So here's what we have. So Jagar sent this to us. He said, is this real or fake? Please help me. And you can see, and I wonder if I can blow this up larger. Yes, I can. Okay, I'm going to blow this up. This is hilarious. Well, it's not hilarious because people are duped by it. But you can see here all of this fancy labor market impact assessment, LMIA, Canada, confirmation number. Like all of this is total fraud. It's a total fake document. They've even tried to create these watermarks in the background to make it look legitimate. But this is entirely false. And even here, Barrister Eric Etienne, Lawrence Holmes and Associates, like this is all fraudulent. And so lots of people are wondering, well, how am I going to know what is real and what is fake? And then we also had within this a whole bunch of other comments. Let me see if I can open these up. And we had a lot of discussion about this. But this is important because I don't want any of you guys to be duped by this. Okay, so then someone else pointed out something that is totally true. And he said, look at the address. The postal code is of Toronto, but the address is of a residential property. And so, yeah, it's totally fake. And then we have this one here. Let's see if I can enlarge this one. Will it go any bigger? Ooh, that's maybe too big here. Let's escape that. Okay, so here's an offer of employment letter. Now, doesn't this look just hokey? Doesn't it look fake? And that's the case here. AP Moeller, Maersk, whatever. Like, it's all distorted, and then this fake stamp on the bottom. Like, anyone who's sending a job offer like this, and the first thing I think of, this is not legitimate. It just doesn't look real. And if you've never spoken with them, you've never had anything to do with them, then understand this is simply, it's too good to be true, right? You can't buy your way into Canada. It actually has to be earned on its merits, unless people are actually committing outright fraud, unless there's a Canadian company that's actually committing outright fraud. So these are some of the things that that people are showing. And then here's another one. And this one looks pretty legitimate. So this is from Roxton Fruit Farm Limited. So guess what I did? I looked at this and I thought, well, you know what? This one actually looks a little bit more legitimate. It has all the information. It's asking for the things that people would normally ask. It looks like a Canadian job offer. But then what I did was I went in and I did a search. And I found this link here, which talks about this particular company and the fake job offers that are going around. So you can see how easy it is to be caught with this. And and then there's another example right here, Roxton Fruit Farm. Okay, and this looks pretty legitimate, but once again, it's fake. So be aware of this, and in a few seconds, I'm going to have an actual real one, and I'll come back and I'll show you once. Not quite? Oh, it won't black out? What about a white out, the white tape? Yeah. Okay, we're just trying to redact it because we don't want our client information to be shown to 30,000 people on Facebook. But anyways, this is something that I really wanted to go over because it's something that you guys face all the time as you're desperate to be able to come to Canada. And I love my country. It's a phenomenal country. And I think everybody in the world would want to live here. And ironically, there are some people on our Facebook group that say, why do you want to move to Canada? Canada isn't that great. Well, guess what happens to them? I kick them out of our group because I only want positive people in our group. But anyways, I'm going to go back to full screen here. And so thanks so much for those who helped me with that. And hopefully you'll understand how easy it is to be duped. But if it's too good to be true, then more than likely it is. All right. Now, I want to get to a few questions from all of you. And because our time is quickly slipping away here, and this is really just supposed to be a special one for those who are considering whether or not to drop their spouses. And I promised that other Facebook member that I would talk about job offers. Understand that once I show you what the real one looks like, then you can use that as a guide going forward. And if your labor market impact assessment doesn't look like that one, then you'll know it's just a fake. All right, so the first question I have here is from Miriam, and she says, "Hey Mark, thank you for helping us all out. My question is this. Is it possible to change your work history a bit after receiving an ITA?" Oh, yes, Miriam, yours was the one that is going to trigger a whole separate discussion on my next Q&A. I'll read the question just to whet everybody's appetite here. But she said, the knock is the same. The job description is the same. It's just that I had 2 positions in my company, and right now I have mentioned only 1 in my Express Entry profile, which happens a lot. Can I change this knowing it won't affect my marks? P.S. I have an ITA. So she has received her ITA, she's getting ready to file the EAPR, and now she's wondering whether or not she somehow committed misrepresentation or hasn't done things properly, and can she correct it when she files her EAPR. I'm going to give you just a quick little short answer, Miriam, but I don't want to give it all away in detail because I need to explain this in detail. The simple reality is, when you submit your EAPR, you do have the ability to change things, but there are 2 things that can't be affected. So it doesn't necessarily mean that your EAPR is going to get approved, but for some people who are worried they will not get another ITA, sometimes it's because their age is dropping or there's other factors that are going to reduce things substantially. Some people feel like it's worth the risk to continue forward. Well, the Immigration Policy Manual specifically state that if at the time you file your electronic application for permanent residence and you make your changes, as long as those changes don't disqualify you from eligibility for one of the permanent resident programs, in other words, you still need to meet the minimum 67 points for the federal skilled worker program. So if you're outside of Canada, you still have to meet that minimum 67 points. And if the changes that you make actually result in you dropping below 67 points, then your EAPR will be refused because you will not qualify. In like manner, if the changes that you make are going to reduce the points, your comprehensive ranking system points that you had when you were given your ITA. So if you make the change and your new comprehensive ranking system score is below that threshold, that point total that you received your ITA in the beginning, let's say you had 415 points, the draw was at 413, and when you make your change, your points go to 412, then that would also result in your EAPR being refused. But if the changes you make, you correct them, you submit your new information into the EAPR, and it doesn't impact negatively on whether or not you qualify for the programs, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and it doesn't reduce your comprehensive ranking system score below that most, that pass mark, that comprehensive ranking score that you received your ITA on, then you can proceed forward. So that's the basic rule. But I'm going to go into more detail next Q&A. So say thank you because I wasn't going to do that, but I felt I better do that anyways. Okay, the next one is from Nidil. And Nidil says, "Dear Mark, warm greetings. I am Nidil from India, and I am gladly appreciate you for helping and guiding so many of us. Thank you for the same." Thank you. And once again, I want to reiterate to all of you, thanks so much for being so collegial, for helping one another, for answering each other's questions. You inspire me all the time with your generosity. And so I appreciate every single member of this group that contributes in a positive way. I'll also add that if there's any members of the group that are making fun of any other group member or belittling their English or, just not being kind, guess what happens to them? Gonzo. I punt them from the group because this group is supposed to be one where people can safely share their questions without being made to feel stupid, right? We all come at this from different levels. And so I have zero tolerance for anyone who is belittling or making fun of anyone else. There's just no room for it. And so thank you for all of you who are kind and generous with your time. All right. So I am Nidil from India. And I just read this. I haven't started the EE process yet. I want to ask you a question. Please revert me if possible. Me and my wife are planning to shift to Canada via the EE system, and I have calculated our CRS score, and it is coming 480. If we count CLB 9 as IELTS score. Okay, so you're hoping that you're going to get a CLB of at least 9. We both have master's degrees in business administration. So are we good to go? Okay, so there's a whole lot more factors involved here that we'd need to assess in order to be able to answer this question. It says the only problem is we have running home loan of 20 years of duration. Okay, so it looks like they have a mortgage on their property. Will it affect our application of express entry or not? What should we do to avoid rejection for such cases? I will be glad if you think you can revert me for the same. I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you so much. And then this is my favorite part. P.S. I am also interested to enroll for your step-by-step guide. Okay, I will make sure that the link to the step-by-step guide is included below within the comment section once this video ends. And eventually I'll figure out how to interact with you live while I'm doing this. But at this stage, I have to add the comments in below after we finish our EE Live Q&A. Okay, so basically the question is, it comes down to proof of funds. And Nidil, you're asking, well, what if we have a mortgage? And so one of the simple things that I usually say to my clients is, if you're looking to immigrate to Canada and you receive your invitation to apply, there's a significant chance you're going to be able to go through. When it comes to proof of funds, the government does ask for essentially your net worth. They want to know if your assets exceed your liabilities to the extent that you can meet the minimum low-income cutoff mark. And so I'll just show everyone here. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to pull this up. And then I'm going to turn on. I'm going to shift over here to my screen again. And then I'm going to blow this up. Okay, so here's the proof of funds section on the IRCC website. And if you scroll down here, this shows how much money you need to have depending on the number of family members. So Nidil, if it's just you and your spouse and you do not have any children, then you need to show that you've got at least $15,312 Canadian in liquid funds, so unencumbered funds. In other words, they're not a loan, they're not otherwise a part of security on some other mortgage or anything like that. So usually what I tell my clients is that after, let's say you were to sell your home, some people say, can I use the property valuation on my home as proof of funds? Well, you can't, because it has to be liquid. It has to be unencumbered. It has to be available to be used directly in Canada. And the reason is because you need that money to actually settle. And as many people have pointed out, right now in Canada, the job market is not really hot. There are challenges. The economy is a little bit slower. Even Canadians and permanent residents are having trouble finding positions. And so it's really important that you understand that if you have a mortgage on your home, then maybe the question to ask is, if I was to sell my home, then would that give me enough money to obtain or to meet this minimum amount that the government says I have to meet? And or if I was to add up all of my assets and subtract all of my liabilities, would I still be able to meet that amount? And so that's the question you have to ask. So will it cause a problem? Well, ultimately, it just depends on whether or not you will have money above and beyond the debt that you own in your home. And in some cases, people actually have to sell their homes and then take the money out, because you can't just use a property valuation. All right? So I think at this stage, how's it coming, Billy? Oh, perfect. She's already sent it to me. Okay, well, hang tight here, and I'm going to show you guys at the very last part here what a labor market impact assessment actually looks like. Let's see if I can find it here. And which email address did you send it to? markholthe@gmail.com? Oh, do you know what? That's okay. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I know all of these people are being very patient. So let's just see here. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Okay. Let's open this up. Okay, here we go. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to now flip to my screen, and I'm going to show you all what it looks like. So this is exactly what a labor market impact assessment looks like. Okay, so we've just scanned this in. It'll always have a date stamp. Here's the LMIA number at the top, and then here it will always address, in this section here, the actual name of the employer, not you, the employer. And then this is what it looks like. There's a lot of legal jargon in here. It's really important to note that with these labor market impact assessments, they are for the employer, not for you. So if it looks like the LMIA is addressed to you, then you know it's a fake. But this is it here. And as I scroll down, we'll go down to here. Okay, so this is what the employer will see. So you can see here, it's got the officer, it's got the information here, and then you can see right here, it'll have the business number, the company, all of their contact information will be up here, the employer contact, and this is just a recent approval that we received. This is for beef cattle herds person. It describes the number of positions, the level of education. In this case, there's no education requirements. It describes here the duration. These are often for 24 months. The hourly wage that the person is paid, vacation pay. So you can see all this information, right? There's no mistaking this. This is the official one. And then in some cases, especially in the agriculture stream, which this one was, it has some restrictions on housing and other things. But what I want to show you is the portion specifically that you will use to give to the Canadian Embassy, or I should say express entry, when you're uploading your application. And as we scroll down here, okay, so this is where your name is listed. It's called Annex B. And you'll see here that this Annex B has your name and the name of the employer, LMIA number, when it expires, and LMIAs are always valid for 6 months. So this one you can see was just issued. And yeah, and then your name is down here, first name and last name. So that there, folks, is an LMIA. And if it doesn't look like that, then understand that it's not legitimate. All right. Let's see here. We are at, as far as time, I don't like to have these things go too long. We're at about 48 minutes, but there's probably a little bit of time for those of you who came in and actually were willing to sit in live. Maybe I can try and reward you a little bit. Okay, so Sanjeev says, hi Mark, do we need to calculate IELTS score individually for Federal Skilled Worker Program? The answer is yes. Each of those abilities needs to be at a minimum Canadian Language Benchmark 7. So you can't have a 6.5 in one and an 8.5 in another and just average them. Each of them, when you're doing your calculations, will be attributed their own point threshold. And depending on how you score on each ability, that will determine whether or not you can get those special transferability points, those extra ones that really drive up your CRS score. So just remember that, yeah, it's not an average of 9 if that's what you're shooting for, which really CLB 9 is, that's the highest level that you really want to try to attain. Okay. Okay, Shabit Dar says, if possible, can you tell us about the proof of funds? Well, I kind of already went through that. Because I've got it up, I guess I can flip back here if I didn't close it off. Let me see if I can find, okay, so this link here, and if I can remember, I'll put this, you might have to remind me, I'll put this link in the show notes. Okay, there. So this here, as you can see, and I'll blow this up, is the section for proof of funds. So if you want to know about proof of funds, this is where you go. There's the Federal Skilled Worker Program, Federal Skilled Trade Program. Guess why the Canadian Experience class is not listed here? It's because for the CEC, you do not need to show proof of funds. Also, if you have an arranged offer of employment, or that job offer thing I was telling you about, in other words, an employer who has obtained a labor market impact assessment for you, then you also don't need to provide proof of funds because you have a job waiting for you. There isn't a time period where you're going to be unemployed. So this is where it breaks it down, and simply put, this is the amount that you need. And then when it comes to, I'll give you another little piece of information. This is the location where the policy is for completing your electronic application for permanent residence. And so if we scroll down here to proof of funds, this is exactly what they ask for. So this confirms whether the applicant meets the low-income cutoff, and that's this right here. And it says you should provide an official letter from one or more financial institutions that lists all current bank and investment accounts, as well as outstanding debts such as credit cards, debts, and loans. And that's why in the previous question I was explaining, if you owe a whole bunch on a mortgage on a home, then you're going to need to sell that home if you need to pull that money out. So that is, whether or not the government will actually consider the full amount of the loan as debt. It won't, because the asset is your house that you're paying on with that mortgage, and so it would arguably be the difference. But you can't count any of the funds in that asset as available for meeting the LICO. You'd actually have to sell the house or sell your car or whatever else it is that you're actually trying to show that you've got money. It has to be liquid funds. Okay? It must be printed on the letterhead of the financial institution, and it must include, you can see here, your name, contact information of the financial institution, account numbers, the date each account was opened, and the current balance on each account, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. So this is the letter that the bank is supposed to get for you. And then other documents, you can see, may also be requested as necessary. Well, that's only if the government prompts you or has other questions. And in previous EE Live Q&As, I've talked about, well, what if my father wants to gift me money, and what do I do? Well, you're going to have to go back and watch previous EE Live Q&As. And I'll try to identify some of the topics in those previous ones, because this is just a live Q&A. It's meant to be you watching me live. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, hopefully that answers your question. And then I'll jump back here so that I can see. All right, so the next one, when it comes to PNPs, I get a lot of questions about PNPs. And I will be honest, I specifically avoid PNP discussions within this EE Live Q&A. And the reason is because by the time I'm talking about it, 99% of the time the program is full. So there's no point in it. And the government, for each province, releases these new programs without a lot of fanfare, without a lot of notice, and then those who are the fastest to get their applications in, usually fill up the quota so fast. And understand, the amount of people that are actually able to qualify through express entry and through the various PNPs is very small. Most of the provinces across the country are only allowed 5,500 nominations for principal applicants each year. And so with 30,665 or whatever we have people in our EE Live Q&A Facebook page itself, you can see it's just, and it's almost impossible to keep up to speed with everything that's happening. So that's why I don't do a lot of discussion about the Manitoba PNP or the BC or Ontario programs. Okay. All right. I think I'm probably going to end right now. I know a lot of you have questions, and I'll try to go on in the comment section and try to respond as much as I can. But understand we're very close to the time now where I'm going to have to answer most of my questions through this means. And the reason I do this is because when I answer in the comment section within the Express Entry Law Facebook page, there's often only those few people that are actually following that thread that are actually getting the information. And I need this information that I'm giving to go out to a much larger group, and so that more people are being taught, are being instructed, so that my time is being used to the maximum possible effectiveness. And I spend hours. I hope you guys can appreciate, just quantify how long you think it's taking me to answer these questions. Every single night I go on and try to answer. Even when I wake up in the morning, sometimes before I even get out of bed, I'm answering questions. And so it's becoming, you can see the bags under my eyes here, it's becoming almost impossible. So I'm going to still try to do what I can, but these EE Live Q&As, I think I'm going to start having them more and more. In fact, I may even do them every single day. But that way they have a greater reach, they have an ability to reach more people. Okay, I think at this stage we have crossed over the time limit. This is probably still too long. 55 minutes is a long time for a live Q&A. So I may do just shorter ones versus longer ones. But just to finish off, I just want to remind everyone, and I'm going to keep plugging this, this is the sponsor, the CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com. If you go to that, www.CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, it will take you straight to the Express Entry, the complete step-by-step guide to doing it yourself. I created it, every aspect of it. I learned how to do video capturing. I spent hundreds of hours building it, developing it, beta testing it, and then I pay to host it so that you guys can have access. Originally, I charged $497 as a one-time fee for the course, but I realized that that was still out of reach of many of you. So I decided the best way to do it was to change it to a monthly subscription of $39 US, so that you could subscribe for as long as you needed to. If you needed to subscribe for a couple months and then cancel your subscription till you get your ITA and then resubscribe again to complete your EAPR, then you could do that. But I created it for you. So people, more and more and more and more people every day are subscribing to it. And if you have, I would love you guys to post your comments on it here in this live feed, because it needs to be socially proofed. People need to understand that it's not a waste of money, and it's not just like everything else. The reality is it's where I show you how to do it, not just tell you, or not make you search through thousands of threads on an immigration forum, or even on this Express Entry Law Facebook page for your answers. And the Q&A section is building and building and building. And so I use you guys to teach me how to offer a better course. And as a prior immigration officer on the border, which I worked here on the Alberta-Montana border, and as a prior high school teacher, this is exactly right up my alley. And I love doing it. So, all right, we'll close off here. We're just about at an hour. But thank you so much for listening to this special EE Live Q&A. I am heading tonight to New Orleans in the United States for the American Immigration Lawyer Association Conference. And I am also a member of that association. I do not practice U.S. immigration law, but it's an opportunity for me to connect with a lot of my colleagues and friends down in the U.S. who refer their U.S. clients who are in the U.S. to me, and I do a lot of business immigration and individual work for them. And it's a lot easier for them to share Canadian immigration to me if they know I'm not going to also do U.S. immigration for their clients. All right, signing off, everyone. Thanks so much for being a part of this, and good luck as you work through this crazy world of Express Entry.